In today's video, I will continue with the SRS Pro Edition with auto separate functionality. I'll be showing you the remainder of the tools built in and how to use them, and also some general do's and don'ts, as well as tips to get the most out of SRS. So first, let's start SRS in global mode. So we'll go to the Extras menu and select Global, and then we'll set the filters as we need them. I've already preset a bunch of countries that I want to use, which are Canada, Greece, Luxembourg, and the US. And now we're set to start our scanning. So the first thing I'm going to do is show you some of the tools and how to use them properly. First thing you need to do is realize that when you hover over any image in SRS, you'll get a little tool tip at the top here that tells you what that tool will do. So for example, when you hover over this blue icon, that's the select and crop an area. When you click over, or when you hover over the tool icon, that's the auto separate toolbox. And we'll get to that as we go through each one of these tools. So first, I'm going to demonstrate for you what to do with pairs. So I'm going to drop an image in here. So when you have an attached pair like this, where the two stamps or the multiples are identical, you can't search for that stamp this way. You can only put in one of the singles, unless it was a C-tenant image where it actually had like a block of four different stamps, and we'll get to that later as well. Now, to separate this image, what we have to do is use the crop tool. So we click on this blue icon here, and we move our cursor over the image, and we draw a rectangle around the area that we want to crop. And when we're done, we double click on this icon here. And what that has done is it's put that image into the SRS window ready for us to search for it. So I'm going to put in the denomination of 1 franc and start the search. And it has found it. I won't inventory it for now. We'll do that later. Okay, so that's how you use the crop tool. The next tool I'm going to show you is what's called the toolbox. And when you click on this icon here, it will bring up this floating toolbar with these different tools. One is the magic wand, the other is the select an area, and the other is the brush tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is load up another image. And as you can see, this has a fairly bad background. It's got parts of another stamp, and this background's kind of gray. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the magic wand tool. It has a tolerance of between 10 to 99. I'll show you what happens at 99. And all you have to do is click in the background, and you can see it cleaned up all the background, but it also ate up part of the stamp there because it's a little aggressive, but it also left those two pieces at the top. To accept that, you just left click on that icon, and now it's set. Now we're not quite ready to put this stamp through to SRS yet to search for it. There are several ways that we can clean this up, and I'll show you both. And one of the ways is to click on the select an area to crop. So you click on this icon here, and then you place your mouse in the image, and then just start drawing a rectangle of what it is that you want to clean up. And as you can see, as you're moving your mouse, it's actually cleaning it up. And I'll do the same here. And then there's a little bit down at the bottom. And we can get a little bit closer. There we go. So that stamp is ready to go. I would still do one more step, and that is to actually, now we have to turn this off, and that is to actually crop the image. So we'll crop it, again like I showed you before, draw a rectangle around it, double click, and then that has placed it in the main window. That's a €2 stamp, and we click Start Search, and it's found them. Alright, so let's go back here now. Now, the other area, the other thing I want to show you is through another scan, and let me throw this one in here. So this is a pretty nasty scan. It's actually not a scan. It's an image taken by a cell phone. And the way you can tell is that this image is distorted. It is kind of tilted. It's almost like a parallelogram. And that's because when the person that took this image, the phone was not directly over the image, and the phone was probably tilted 10-15 degrees, which gives you an aberrated image. We can still try and clean this up so that we can use it. And again, you have the option of using the tools icon. So we'll go here and we'll clean up an area. And we'll do the same at the bottom and on the side. Whoop. And then what you can do is crop it. And it's thrown it into the thing. And now we'll search for that stamp. So even though it is a pretty bad image, it may still find it. And I didn't think so. One of the reasons is, again, because of the aberration of the image. I highly recommend that you scan your stamps instead of using your phones, unless you can be certain that you're taking the images correctly and they're directly over the image. All right, so let me show you another way to clean up images. Let me drop this one in here. Alright, so if you take a look at this stamp, there's a bunch of stuff down at the bottom. And what we can do is we can clean it up with the brush tool. And what we'll do is we'll click on the brush. Let's move this over here so you can see. And then we can change the brush size if we like. That looks about right. And then all you do is you just bring your mouse over the area and see how it's cleaning it up. And then the other thing I'll do is I'll clean up this area just to the right, on this side right here. And now that stamp is ready to be cropped. So I'll take it out of there. And then I'll double click. And then we'll set the denomination as 10 cents. And we'll start the search. Alright. Now, throwing an image like this when you have selvage, it's not going to be found properly. You have to crop the images as if they were singles. So we'll do that here. And I'll change the denomination. And found it. And same with this block. What we can do is we'll crop out just a single. You don't have to be exact as long as you're fairly close. And I'll move that down so you can see. I'm going to double click. I'm going to change that to 36 cents. And start the search. And again, it found it. And similarly, with this stamp here that has selvage on both sides, we're going to trim it. Let me do that one more time. And that has a denomination of 100. And we'll start the search. and it found it. It found a few actually, and there it is right there. All right. Okay, so now here is an example of what you shouldn't be doing with a scan, but most of the time you should be scanning against a black background. This one was obviously the stamps were attached to a page, and you may not want to remove the stamps just for scanning, but the crop tool will let you process this image anyways. Again, just crop it as closely as you can. And we're going to get a little bit extra here, but we'll give it a try. So I'll double click on it. And as you can see, I trimmed it a bit close, but we'll try it. Sometimes it can get them even with a partial image. And let's see how we do. Yeah, it still found it. And there's our image right there. So it just makes things a little bit more difficult if you scan them against a white background like that or on piece. All right, so let me just get this one closed. Okay, so let's do one more where I've scanned some stamps on a cover. So if you can see here, this is a first day cover that I've got. And obviously I'm not going to remove the stamp from the cover so that I can identify it, but it's easy enough to just crop it. And then give it the proper denomination and do the search. And again, it found it right away. So on this cover, it also had some other stamps, which I'll crop one out. And we'll change the denomination, and we'll do our search. So as you can see, it found 5 different varieties of this stamp. Which one it is, I'm not really sure, but what we can do is we can add each one of these to our list and then recall them and determine which one it is. So I'll do that first. I'm going to add each one of these so that we can recall it. And we'll close that. Okay, so again, avoid scanning on white backgrounds unless it's not possible, such as stamps on cover, first day cover, or paper. And when you have multiples, you need to trim them to singles unless it's a C-tenant pair or multiple. Let me show you another example of that so that you can see what I'm talking about. Let me load an image here. So here's a scan that I've done previously. But if you look here, here is a multiple. Now if you try and scan this, it's not going to find it, but you can use the crop tool, and even though it's not perfectly aligned, we should be able to find that. And we'll just go back and change the denomination and start the search. And again, it found it right away. Okay, so the other thing to do is when you have excess paper or perfs or all sorts of, I'll call them anomalies, you should clean them up. So I'm going to drop this stamp in here, or this scan. So if you look at this stamp here, it has a fairly large piece of another stamp, obviously from I guess this was cut from a sheet. So what we're going to do is we're going to clean that up, and I'm going to use our tools here, and I'm going to clean up that area here. Same with this guy down here. It's got a whole bunch of paper at the top, which I'm going to clean up, and same with this one on the side. And then those are ready to scan and crop. So what I'll do is I'll now take this stamp and crop it out, and we should find it no problem. And we'll just change the denomination. And again, found them right away. And let's go back here. So in this particular instance, I'm going to crop just one of the stamps out. And go back here and change the denomination. And start our search. And found them right away. Similarly with these ones, we would do the same thing, just crop one out and proceed as we would normally do. So another thing to avoid when you're scanning your stamps is try not to scan them too close together. So here's an example of what I mean by that. These stamps are overlapping and they're very close together. These stamps are not going to get separated properly. So you need to try and keep them a fair distance apart, kind of like this. Now that's a proper scan, and these stamps will get separated quite easily. Now the other thing that you should try and avoid doing is make sure you scan your stamps in the proper orientation. This particular stamp is has been scanned at 90 degrees to what it should be. It should be a horizontal stamp. So this stamp will not be found, but I believe I showed you this in the previous video, how to rotate that particular image. The other thing to keep in mind is that, let me throw a scan on here for you first. So let's put this guy here. Okay, so this scan looks pretty good, but what's happened here is, if you notice, this has a large white background. This stamp is not going to get found. What happened here is this was scanned on a scanner that has a white a lid, and this stamp was probably in a mount. So I showed you in a previous video how to put a black plastic cover on the lid of your scanner. That shows you how to get really nice clean black backgrounds. For this stamp, what we need to do is we have to crop this just the black area out. And we'll double click. And we'll start that. And we'll start the search. And as you can see, there's quite a few multiples varieties of this stamp, and you'd have to determine which one it is. Okay, so one of the last things that I want to make sure that you do is there is a very comprehensive manual built into SRS, and it has a lot of screenshots and examples of things, explaining pretty much all the functionality. So I highly recommend that you take the time and read this this manual if you have any questions about the functionality. So for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit SRS, and if you remember, we found this 1 cent Kestrel, and there was 5 different varieties of this stamp that SRS found. But you're not really sure at that time what the differences were. So that's the beauty of doing it this way. You can actually see the differences. So for example, let me minimize some of these columns so that we can see what the varieties are. So most of them are perf varieties, so some are tagged, some are die cut, and different. Some are coils. So depending on what you see when you scanned, you can pick the right one. I'm pretty sure the one on the first day cover was a coil, and it was the large date one. Okay, I hope you found this useful, and if you have any questions, please let us know. Enjoy.